the Highfield Sports Complex, Nottingham. It's the UK National Championship Finals. Hannah Pendlebury in the booth this fine, breezy, warm Sunday afternoon with alongside Michael Paul. We do have some potential lightning action later on in the day, which is why these finals have been brought a little bit forward in the schedule. But right now in front of us, we are getting some weather brewing out on the fields. Gravity of Ireland versus LMU London Masters Ultimate. So these two teams having never played each other before. Michael, what are we expecting out of this game?
Well, good afternoon, Hannah, and good afternoon, everyone. I think we're expecting a really good contest, a culmination of this women's division that has been really competitive throughout. You say they've not played each other, but LMU have had a couple of tussles against Masterclass. A couple of these Irish ladies have played on Masterclass, so they will know a little bit about each other, but not the same thing that we sort of expect from the other teams in the women's division. And
certainly for Gravity's season, we've seen them come out to different tournaments, different events with different squads, because they are very much an established club side. They have said this year it's the first opportunity they've had to actually train together at both the elite but also the all-club level. So whereas in previous seasons they've only maybe had 1 or 2 trainings to really build themselves, which isn't a lot of time to work on your connections, this time out they've taken things a little bit more structured throughout the season, but also still allowing their younger players to develop, which is really important for obviously the women's scene in particular, where there's just a little bit of a smaller player base.
I can't agree more. I am a massive fan of club ultimate regional setups, developing players across the spectrum, and that's exactly what they have been doing in Dublin, and I can't appreciate it more. LMU a slightly different setup and often finding themselves having quite small trainings, but they've been talking about how they can always make those really beneficial, forcing themselves into uncomfortable situations in training. Hopefully we'll see that show fruit today.
Well, even though mostly you see Ultimate being played at a 7-a-side sport, in fact, if it does actually make itself into the Olympics, which is obviously one of the campaigns of the World Flying Federation, had a bit of a knockback in not making the schedule in Los Angeles, but actually Ultimate Fours is the one they're going for in the program. So playing mini, playing sort of 2v2, 3v3, plus, you know, it might actually pay dividends later on in Ultimate history. But Mara Alperin's going to get us underway in this final. Of course, this is not the EUCR-W qualification for the women's division here, just playing for that gold medal. Emma Pichot with the block straight out low, and a disc, an early opportunity for Gravity.
This is exactly how they'd like to start the game, generate a turn really early on, and Garnier with the disc now.
And
big
she's
player.
Going to shoot up, and that's going to sit and hang, going to be taken out of the air. No, it's not. A cluster of LMU players. A hard fought at the back, I think, for Pichot. They're just making an heroic effort to try and scoop that one up, but a missed opportunity.
Definitely sitting a little bit longer than she intended. A lot of traffic underneath, but a heroic effort to try and clean up the trash, and we're going again.
Oh, but another error for LMU. Francesca Scarampi just dropping the disc on the far side.
Almost exactly the same spot as well.
Yeah, similar. And of course, Gail Haney giving us an action replay, picking it back up, fetching pink visor to indicate that she means business. We might get some pink action from LMU if they're able to best this one. Oh, it's a big laser to the back of the end zone, and Scarampi's there to just knock it down out of contention. Sort of dialing these in a little bit.
A little bit longer spent focused on that area of the pitch, not really looking to move it too much. Not sure what I think about that. I think you, especially in front of the end zone, force the defense to cover the entire pitch.
So a high one trying to hit Mafty's going to be scooped up by Helen Barron. She's going to shoot to Gilhaney, and on this side of the disc, there's a pick call earlier on in the place. That one's going to be reeled back. But yeah, this is not the start that LMU would have been hoping for. A little bit sloppy.
I think a lot bit sloppy would be fair. Looks like we are coming back.
Well, it's only little bits of sloppiness because they're only really getting one pass to look at and not making the most of it.
Prolonged discussion about this call now.
But interestingly, actually, with LMU, they've been talking all season about trying to start well in these games. The women's division format here slightly different, 50-minute long pool games, so that became more than crucial to come out firing. And LMU had a lot of tight wins to get themselves here.
They did have a lot of tight wins. Topping the pool, not losing a game, either of these teams yet, but LMU's games are certainly much closer than Gravity's.
Well, and certainly in future UK finals, we might see a brutal division where you have to win all your games to get to this gold medal stage. But an action replay there for us. Gilhaney going to work and getting the first point on the board. And it's a break.
If I could say, if you can't complete the pass, go catch it yourself.
Well, we saw after the second turnover, Gilhaney did have a little moment where she had a hammer fake. Sort of, you know, I should have thrown the hammer instead kind of jobby. But we know that Gravity and the Irish women's teams really do like to throw those big ball overheads, especially if we see any zone be played against them. So we'll look forward to an aerial display or two later on in the stages of this match.
I think that's a very wise observation that we're going to probably have some zone. The wind has been picking up and dropping down across this weekend. We are in a slightly different position to most of the other pitches, so it is something that teams need to be aware of. A slight change of focus, make sure you're aware of it, but that's what you expect from class players, always being able to adapt to the conditions that are presented them with. And
it is one of the strengths of veterans, of which we have many on the pitch. Obviously the clue's in the name for London Masters Ultimate as to perhaps the age of those athletes out on the field hanging tough with the younger players from Gravity. But of course, as we've mentioned, the masterclass side, the Irish women's team that represented back in Limerick, which was a fantastic tournament in June, playing for Gravity. So Burbage getting us underway for the first look at LMU's offence. Lily Huang able there to just squeak them out. Weddell now across to Ford. Ex-Iceni players, one of which. Burbage back to Huang. I'll take that back, that's Thompson there in the 11.
And as you observed, Gravity have thrown a zone, forcing LMU to work it around.
A little bit of too much touching from Jess Chambers there. An accepted foul. But Huang and co happy to play in these small channels at the back. Burbage now going to go for the swing across to Ford. Has the option available upfield. Nicely taken. Weddell now. Gravity sticking with the zone. Burbage. Thompson is available, but well marked out by Claire Pugh. And the little jink just tiptoeing it into the end zone. The goal for Emma Burbage. And that's a nice, easy hold to add to the break tally for LMU.
Much smoother offense shown than the first point there. Gravity were starting to sit under in the end zone, not really breaking out of that zone look, tempting LMU to try and take it over the top, but discretion was the better part of valor, and they played small ball, and it worked for them.
So I take that back, it's one apiece. There's no one flipping the scoreboard on the far side of the field. Hopefully we can get somebody to do that. So you have, well, of course, you have the wonderful scoreboard graphic as powered by ULTI.TV production crew.
Brought to you by that hard-working ULTI.TV production crew.
Tireless. Absolutely tireless. The longest shift of any of the volunteers, apart from perhaps the UKU staff themselves. But of course, we won't pat ourselves on the back too much. The real people working hard are the athletes on the field, Michael.
Yeah, I can tell you for certain. I've never felt so good on a Sunday of a tournament.
Oh, well, clearly you didn't do enough. You sound very not hoarse in the threats. Usually, by this point, we start to feel it in our brains as we have to focus all the time. But at the moment, looking to put their focus together, our Gravity. Kwan on the far side. Pushing back. Oh, a nice find through the middle to Daly. Dishing back to Jen Kwan. Using her hands to tell her teammates and communicate exactly what she's looking for as LMU put on their first zone. Nice movement around, but not really making any advances through after that early shot slicing through. Nice movement now across. Oh, but coming through from the deep space. Nice play from Ola Kuliskowska.
That was a fantastic read of the play there. That's exactly what you really want to be doing in that position. Watching it, seeing if you can get in there and generate a turn on that swing.
Would have been nice to see Sutherland come in for a little bit more, but this is now an opportunity for LMU. Thompson going up line, nice high dish from Sharman. Oh, and a lefty flick, a big effort from Chescawella, but unfortunately comes up empty-handed.
That was a humongous bit, and she couldn't quite hang on to it.
But nice work from Gravity's defense, pressuring after that turnover.
We now have another opportunity to see Gravity's offense looking very flowing in this previous passage of play. Didn't really see much of them in the first point because it was all end zone offense.
Yeah, but this Jones doing a good job of containment. It's not really making much move upfield from Gravity presently, although a bit of a loose deep mark from Kate Ford allows a bit of movement upfield. Nice high snag from Daly. Kwan now looking for each target. Sutherland is still available on this far side, but drifting that little bit towards Ola Koliskowska, who got that block before, and an error there off the palms of Sophie Farnan. It's going to give a nice field position for LMU.
The 2 times this LMU zone has been used, it's forced Gravity to use the handlers, and it has generated a turn both times.
Liu Hang with the high release, and that's a nice bit of flow into the end zone. And that's another on the board for Alice Bulloka.
So with that break, we're now back on serve, considering the first point was a break. Not the best start for LMU, but it looks like they've stamped their authority on this game now.
Yeah, it's a nice move to see them put that zone on early days. You don't want to use it too much. You want to change up the rhythm of the defense, but just seems to sort of, unsettle Gravity. They did have a moment in their semi-final that could have possibly shaken them. Emily O'Brien having unfortunately dislocated her shoulder, making a heroic bid in the end zone as they advanced over Bristol to reach this final. But we know that Gravity like a bit of chaos, Michael.
Well, that's exactly what we said we went to speak to them. Adversity through chaos was at their line, especially considering some of the anecdotes they were giving us about their Worlds campaign. It was making my toes curl. I can't imagine how they managed to get through it. But I think both of these teams are going to rely on that ability to react to the situation in front of them. That's how Gravity are looking to approach the game, and I think with the experience LMU is showing, they're going to benefit from it also.
Well, LMU's goal is to peak here at UK Nationals. They're not going to be taking a berth to Euros, even though they definitely are the quality to be appearing there. The 4-day format's just a little bit too much on the childcare needs, as they have 18 babies amongst them. That's a lovely shot going up high, though, of Emma Pichot reeling it in. Fleming now looking around for options. Back to Gilheeney. Swinging across nicely to Daly. Oh, and it's going to be Pichot for an easy clap catch score. Has Fleming behind her, just in case. But that's a nice, easy one for Gravity to settle the nerves.
Yeah, that scrambled defense from LMU, leaving a reset open and allowing that disc to move fluidly to the opposite side of the pitch. 2 options really developing in that corner, only needed 1. But all opened up by that brilliant shot. Seeing the space, Gilheeney putting it on a dime.
And of course, the throwing class of Anya Gilheeney is something that we've been treated to many times in recent years. I've watched with absolute delight the gold medalist, of course, from the 2019 European Championships. The first gold for an Irish nation in flying disc, I believe. They got to meet the President of Ireland, which is fantastic. Nice to see that recognition. But yeah, a player who's not unhappy to throw something particularly spicy when the mood strikes, and the mood, I'm happy to say, strikes fairly often.
As we saw, we were having a little look at the semi-finals, and we did see a lot of airtime for the disc out of her hands. And here we see again the pull going up.
But both teams with relatively short squads. Hopefully we can keep these points as error-free as possible. Gainey on the far sideline. Tosses through to Viest. Tinsdale Young now. Oh, that's a nice expansive use of the soft side of the field and an easy take for Hay. No players really anywhere near.
Utilising the roll as well to get into that space, and a perfect example of throwing your receiver free. 2 defenders on that open side, but utilising the break side incredibly well. That's another point for LMU.
Well, we know that LMU do like to throw wherever they fancy, regardless of where the force is pressing them to. And of course, Dinsdale Young, even though many thought that LMU was only for, you know, Iceni alumni, Dinsdale Young's one of the founding original members of SICK, the London club side that was, of course, bested by LMU to get into this final. They advanced with a pretty tasty scoreline. I think it was 15-11 over SICK to get into the women's final here. But finally, they lost their last original member to the Masters team.
Yeah, closer than the last semi-final, but a bigger margin than most of their other games this weekend for LMU. We were talking about it before, and you aptly observed that they're peaking at the perfect time, just going into the final.
Indeed, and a little bit of extra fun colour about Dinsdale Young. She's actually a elite level swimmer as well.
I did not know that.
So Lily Huang with the pull for LMU. It's going to get a nice little bit of roll on it towards the sideline. Keep rolling, baby, as Keeley puts it into the palms of Gilhaney. Just some trotting over the zone, nice scuba release. Looking around for targets upfield is Corbett, but none really to be found. Just a bit of casual throwing between each other here for Gravity, making it nice and calm. Oh, but that's a lovely shot, sneaking into the deep space. It's a little bit too far, though. No bid coming from Queen Doyle.
It just falls a little bit short of her. I quite like the loose set of that zone, utilising the experience of some of the players, making sure they're picking up the right people. It does leave a little bit of space though, and there was a lot of space in that deep space.
Well, the clue is in the name. Huang, though, finding Paulequin. Oh, and look at the separation downfield for Sharman. Someone got caught sleeping. Big bump, though, from Gilhaney. She immediately apologises. Almost calling her own foul there.
Yeah, she did make up a lot of ground on the receiver. Wasn't able to slow down in time. That looked like quite a heavy knock. I hope they're all okay. Everyone's back on their feet though. Looks like no permanent damage, which is lovely to see. Uncontested foul call.
Oh yeah, well, Claire Sharman is a very athletic individual. Take a lot more than just that sort of knock to put her out of contention, and she immediately goes to the end zone and scores with a huge layout.
Almost exactly as you were saying it.
Well, you know, I like to think that I occasionally know what I'm talking about.
Well, better than me.
But Sharman has been all over the stats board for LMU this weekend, and watching that little bit of play shows exactly why. Just the dynamic movement, bounce cut across the end zone, nothing Gilhaney can do but just watch.
And really good work tidying that up. LMU now taking a 4-2 lead over Gravity. Their second break of the game. Prolonged gap between these points.
It's one of the things that's slightly when we see, I'm going to be careful about how I word this. When you watch world level games that have game advisors, that have timekeepers on the score lines, it really keeps the pace of things moving. And I think one of the things that UK teams could do better to prepare themselves for those events is be a bit more wary of the time limits between points. Not necessarily in this game, but generally around the field site. There have been lots of moments where we've seen from our pavilion balconies where people are taking a long time between points, not really getting the full fat out of these games. And we want them to go to, the full 28 points if we can. Or 29, sorry. These games, of course, being to 15 and 80 minutes long. Pugh across to the other Gilhaney. We have Claire as well. Jen Kwan opening up a big flick to absolutely nobody but the defense. Alice Paulequin. But in the hands of Thompson Huang. And of course, one of the fun things about some of these players is that the original founders of the club team SIC, obviously ex-Leeds, so familiar with playing against each other about a decade and a bit ago. Of course, ICNE were so dominant when many of these players played for them, but dominated by LMU first thing this morning. Oh, sorry, take that back. Not by LMU this morning, because of course they had a bye. But Jenna Thompson looking around. Weddell just chilling out in the backspace. Polican, though, with the bobble drop on the far side.
Bit of an unforced error there, not a massive amount of pressure coming from the defence. There was a bit of wobble on that disc, but you can see there she takes her eyes away from it, looking for that next pass. We've all been there, we've all done it. You need to catch the disc before you can throw the next pass. LMU pick up the trash though, back on offence.
Yeah, Polican just sitting at the back, waiting for the errant gravity throw. That's a smart defensive play. Oh, but that's a huge block off the attempted hook to the end zone. Great stuff from Sophie Farn and just denial. Swinging across to the centre now. Kwan available far side, doesn't like the look of it, and that's not quite the release that was intended, I'm sure, for Sophie Farn. And after getting the block, just throws it into the turf.
One of those well-known examples of conserving your awesomeness. Generate the turn and then turf the disc.
So Thompson, the lefty, going to bring it in on the goal line. Cheska Weddell immediately going to work. And nothing that Sophie Farning can do as the break is thrown.
Utilisation of that high release backhand, getting onto the break side. I can only imagine how many times that's been done in games and trainings.
So some errors giving the disc in a short field opportunity to LMU. They're happy to capitalise upon it.
We were talking in the last gap between points about the extending time it takes, especially at UK Ultimate, as we see a timeout called now. I agree in principle with what you're saying. We want to get a lot of the game going, but I also think those gaps, those lulls in the game can add emphasis, and they normally come in pivotal moments of the game. If Dublin were able to, if Gravity were able to put that point in, it looks like a completely different game than the current game it is. So I agree with you in part, but I also think there is value to it.
But they are the rules. The time limits between points are rules.
They are rules, they are rules. And like all the other rules, they are enforced by the players. So they are within their right to go and have that conversation. But I think both teams were benefiting from that moment.
Oh no, but there's a reason why we have those rules, and it's to keep the pace of the game flowing, to keep things fair, and make sure. Because I get what you're saying. It's important to have those conversations, but that's what timeouts are for, in those big pivotal moments. And I'm not a huge fan of the in-play timeout. There are certain situations where it does work, but actually, we did see, we've seen them a couple of times on this field in this tournament. A little bit of a, what we lovingly refer to as a turnout.
Yes, but, I know exactly what you mean, just for the word.
But I think we might have been treated at the length of that stoppage to a timeout. I mean, certainly Gravity did all come together, but of course, without the scorekeeper, volunteers on the sidelines, we're not always sure. But if you want to get more involved, of course, in fact, as we just were on camera, you've got a rather dashing hoodie on, Michael.
Yes, I have, thank you very much. The local club here in Nottingham, Flight Club, has been volunteering throughout the weekend. We've had our players walking around, hooters, taking scores, putting in a lot of work, helping out behind the camera.
And of course, if we got a couple more volunteers, we could have scorekeepers, stats keepers across the fields here. So, if you wanted to then track live as what's going on with all the different teams, not just the ones on these live streams, and you know how to make that happen. Sign yourselves up, Ultimate fans, to come and hang out and watch high-level Frisbee all weekend long. What could be better than that? I mean, playing, probably, but volunteering is almost as good.
A fantastic experience. And just to finish that, if you are interested, make sure you reach out to UKU for the tournaments over here on British shores.
And even if you don't want to, just reach out to them to tell them how great they are, because they all work very, very hard. So Gravity now advancing nicely down the field. This is much calmer, more conservative stuff, but commentators, Kerr strikes Helen Barron, not able to get a pause around that high disc.
Working so smoothly around that zone. utilising this deep space left open as well, but again we see Dublin turnover in the reset space. That is they're coming unstuck a little bit against that zone.
So Tyler Waddell into Sharman. Oh, but that's going to be one that even Jenna Thompson can't quite run down. Puts her hand up, says up, that's fine. Currently 3 on the bounce for LMU, so this needs to go in for Gravity to keep themselves with their chins up in this game. Easy reset to Barron. Across to O'Shea Fleming. Chambers in the middle. Nice. Flowing movement now. Keeley back to Chambers. It's a tiny bit low, but well kept. Faking around the world. Options available. Pugh trying to make it happen. Nice expansive shot though across. The fake's there, but Burbage's mark isn't moved by it.
Not a lot coming from Gravity there, only the pick. Now they have an opportunity to set themselves. Maybe looking to an end zone set play.
Well, probably the clustering nature that caused that pick. Everyone trying to figure out who's going where and when. Gilheeney at the front leading the charge. Going to have to run that one down. Oh, just about topbles out of her hand. Touched it, didn't catch it. And Huang immediately going to work. Polacan in the deep space, but just a bit of an overshoot. That was a hard one to read against the sun.
Watching her body language, as soon as she released it, she was not happy with that disc.
So a little bit too hasty. Unnecessarily so. LMU, of course, at the moment, 3 points clear of Gravity, 5-2. Gilheeney, though, getting us back underway. Barron available immediately for the next. Back into Gilheeney. Chambers racing down the near side in the deep space. But all of the attention focused around the disc and the cluster of LMU defense. Barron to Chambers. Back to Barron. There is a lateral option available. Gilheeney trying to move the cup around with her fake, squeaking it into Pugh.
The success they have been finding up until this point is deep of the zone, taking the disc over the top of the defenders, but they're not really offering those options now. But as I say that, one is developing in the end zone. The completed pass was not there.
Yeah, you could see Gilheeney sort of pulling out of that one as Quinsonberry just tried to throw her teammate free, and another opportunity for LMU to try and take this one away. Thompson working around the back with Huang. Nice giving and going. Oh, a low release. Waddell tosses to Thompson. Oh, and it's a big ripper. Claire Pugh's underneath it, but she can't make a play on it. It's Sharman kicking up dust as she gets low. Waddell. Oh, and look at the attack. Claire Pugh just inches away from the second. But Polacan takes it calmly, and that's another break. 4 on the trot for LMU. Are Gravity too tired after having to grind it out against Bristol?
One thing we did note ahead of this game is Gravity do have a slightly shorter roster than LMU, and a couple of injuries haven't necessarily gone their way.
I'm just going to point. I was pointing at my roster sheet when you said that. Obviously, we're missing Emily O'Brien after having put her shoulder out. One of the other gold medalists from EUC in 2019, of course. There are a couple of them amongst the Gravity squad, but no, LMU only have one more player comparatively.
I'll throw my hands up.
It's a for the actual tournament itself, it's a much smaller roster than the other squads out there. So you're, in a sense, correct. They've had a hard run. They've definitely had to ride the waves of chaos to get themselves into the final. They came in 8th seed. I think we have to point that out. No one necessarily expected Gravity to be, you know, going against and ascending to the top of their pool, but they did so.
And getting themselves into the final without losing a single game. There was a recovery game option for some of the teams, but neither of these teams have lost a game.
But it's hard for that recovery semi-final, because of course the teams that topped the pools went straight into semis, whereas their opponents already had one game in their legs. So actually, these two teams playing the format incredibly well, perhaps they wouldn't have had as much energy as required if they'd had to play a quarter before the semi. It's a big release from Gilheeney. Scarampy, though, going up high and early, so making Kate Daly do too, and it sails over their heads.
A very valuable skill there as a defender, drawing the offensive player into an early bid by your threatening presence, and a good example of it there.
Well, Scarampy is a very tall individual, a little bit of a height advantage over Daly. But you're right, baiting the early jump. Nichols up the line. Opens up a big lefty backhand. That's going to fade out of the end zone. Becky Hay has a good go at it, throwing herself all over the floor, but that would have been out of bounds even if she'd made it on the second attempt.
Not a massive fan of that option personally. Same third, wind pushing the disc away from the receiver. That was always a really tricky option to take on, and it didn't come off for her.
Hey, of course, coming through the Brighton Ultimate scene back in its heyday. Having some more of a rebuilding season this year. BN1, the new mixed outfit coming out of that area.
LMU now in a set zone, Gravity sitting towards the back of their end zone, but just breaking it out now, moving forwards towards the brick.
This is good defense from LMU though, staying toe to toe, coming in, and it's a big expansive shot from Helen Barron. Pugh trying to read it desperately underneath, didn't go for the second attempt, maybe had an option of it. So you see her putting her hands on the back there, maybe a little bit of a difficult sore one there, trying to read it against the sun under the hot pressure of Fran Scarampy.
But a second deep D, this point, very useful player for LMU.
And certainly we saw Pugh having her own chances to try and get a block in the deep space. Will be watched by her fiance. Oh, and they throw exactly into her as we're talking about her. Perhaps a little bit of a worse there. Oh, but Nichols tips it off. Catherine Nichols not letting that one sneak past.
LMU with a chance for a breather. Another long point, both teams would be glad for it.
Yeah, well, that's what we are finding actually. The last point had 5 turnovers, and wouldn't be surprised to see the similar for this. Rachel Douglas now. Teammates sort of a bit messy upfield, but eventually finds some space. Got the Polish athlete, Ola Marsalek, but that's going to sit and hang, and Pugh nearly gets it, but it's great composure from Hay. Players now clustering through, looking for a reset. No mark applied though, so she throws whatever she wants to. It's a little bit dirty, but it'll do. Gainey collects, and that is another break. 5 unanswered from LMU. What is happening to Gravity? The force seems to be leaving the object.
Indeed. We are seeing quite a lot of scrappy points, and the turnovers are generated by the scrappy play that follows. A couple of points we have seen go relatively cleanly for LMU. We're seeing Gravity turnover in the reset space on those occasions, but here we're seeing lots of deep shots not quite working. Some of the options possibly a bit suspect. As we have a helicopter come over the pitch, you may hear. Gravity do need to take a moment and make sure they get back into this game quickly, because it is slipping away from them.
The thing that's making me really, that noise from the helicopter has made it really apparent. It doesn't really feel like there's that much noise going on in this game. It seems like a kind of, like I say, one of those scrappy back and forths. Lots of turnovers. In fact, we've had 5 turnovers total in each of the points. So there's been opportunities for Gravity to put themselves in this game. But it'd be nice to see them get a bit more of an injection of energy. Something a little bit spicy and exciting to motivate them in this final match. Because at the moment, it's looking very one-sided indeed. And of course, the sound of that helicopter looks to be potentially an air ambulance. arriving. So whoever that's for, I hope they are okay in the end, because they're probably not okay right now. But we will focus on Gravity, who have to heal their offense to execute and keep themselves in this match. Gilhaney popping up to Fleming as the noise intensifies. They say they thrive on chaos, and finally, under the noise of the helicopter arriving at the hospital, then it seems to work in the favour of Gravity, and they finally punch one in, Michael.
That's exactly what they needed. They were starting to trail away from this game, but now got themselves in. They need to go out there on D, generate a turn, and hopefully put the disc in cleanly. Those of you based in Nottingham will probably be familiar. The Riverside Sports Complex is often used as the air ambulance landing pad. We're just a short hop away from one of the hospitals here. And another prolonged break between points. I'll try and hold you back and not go down there. Have you got your whistle?
No, I wouldn't be trusted with such an important piece of apparatus, Michael. We're just the dancing monkeys up here in the booth surveying the fields. But the sun is coming out, though. It's becoming a very warm, sort of slightly humid atmosphere, of course. We already mentioned this women's final pulled forward alongside the mixed. In fact, in terms of the intensity of this game, we haven't had the length of break, about 45 minutes or so between the semi-finals and this final, with, of course, the weather conditions expected to roll in a storm cell to cool the heat in these early September conditions. And of course, this being unlike the traditional nationals of old over the bank holiday weekend. Oh, and Gravity coming out hungry. This is on a little bit later. Claire Pugh in the deep space. A little bit of a chat with Garnier as to who grabbed that one first.
I'm surprised that shot went. Pugh was sitting in the deep space long before there was an LMU receiver.
But a great catch-up and attack from Catherine Garnier. Looked like a black glove on the disc beforehand.
I would agree. I'm wondering if they're going to see it that way on the pitch. No, LMU have kept the disc.
Well, in the instance of a clutch at the same time, it does go to the offence. So Garnier, after the discussion, looking a little bit lost for options, though. High stall count, going to have to be a release valve just for fun. It's a low scoop, and you see the reaction on Rachel Douglas's face. Was not expecting that throw.
Oh, there was definitely space in the back of the end zone, but the scuba not quite coming off. Douglas almost picking it up, but not quite.
Yeah, usually you hit the emergency button with something lofty and over the top and around. A nice grab underneath the pressure from Alyssa Sutherland. Of course, this is her redemption campaign, her revenge against COVID after being taken out of contention for playing Worlds back in Cincinnati by the virus, which we will speak no more of.
Dublin moving very smoothly now up past the halfway line. Their offense actually being able to kick off in earnest now.
Oh, clearly they have taken the motivation from that helicopter arrival, reminding them the chaos that they use to channel themselves forward. Pugh up line. Looking nice and dominant. Are they going to keep jamming it up that side? Looking around for reset, but the only option is Sutherland, and she snags it out of the air. Doesn't think about her body, just thinks about the score, and that is one break back for Gravity. They'll have to do 3 more to put themselves back on serve. But we might have a game on our hands, Michael.
We may. They finally stopped that flow of breaks. They've finally thrown a punch back in this game. Let's see if it keeps them in it, or let's see if they fall away again. And in answer to your question, yes, they're going to continue to jam it up that sideline. Carbon copy of the first point, perhaps. We have seen a lot of play into that far corner of the end zone throughout this time on the show pitch.
Well, to be fair, they did look around for the reset. You know, they tried to be conservative and then just went, you know what, that works, I like that. But the pace on Alyssa Sutherland was very tasty indeed. And of course, this, if LMU can punch it in, would be to take half. Of course, the game format's here, 80 minutes long and to 15 on the cap. But at the moment, Gravity seems to be riding the wave. What do you think the difference has been?
Difference, that's a tricky one. There has been lots of turnovers, not seen prolonged periods of possession, that being one of the exceptions. I think maybe just try and keep hold of the disc a little bit longer, maybe not look deep straight away. They talk a lot about trusting their squad. Both teams have had that conversation with us ahead of the game. Make sure they need to go back to that. Remember their roots. Gravity especially, a club setup, they all know each other well, they've all been training together. Trust that, trust the connections. That's how they're going to win this game.
And it's one of the keys that LMU likes to talk about, is trusting each other, running their systems. And I think Gravity are doing a decent job, actually, of throwing some different looks in, kind of poaching off and stifling. There have been some moments that I think Lady Luck has favoured LMU so far. A couple of ones that have just been about an inch away from the fingertips of the defenders, which, I mean, we have to accredit that to a lot of throwing prowess. But it's not a comfortable window.
Yeah, Lady Luck is a witch of a fickle nature, as we all know.
I mean, I'd be careful what you say about her, because she might, might not show her favour for you if you call her a witch too much.
Especially with lightning coming along.
Exactly. So Mara Alperim bringing it over to Anne Mafty. And a zone from Gravity to try and confuse the space on the field. Mafty to Skarampi. Small ball just to eat up a couple of yards. Nice big around, sending Chambers to the floor.
Laney allowing a lot of space for that deep receiver, trusting herself to get there.
Well, as we just had demonstrated in that, the wind has picked up. It's from left to right as we see it on our camera perches. A nice high one from Mafty, though, going to be taken out of the air, and that is why Gilhaney is happy to play loose defense at the back, but Skarampi with the block to redeem LMU, because this just sits in the wind. Dinsdale Young looking across. A puncture through from Alperin. Oh, Gilhaney has a go, but no dropping back from the defense. Pichot unable to realise the two behind it, and an easy score in the end for LMU, and that is half. Double line, 8-4.
We have seen a lot of zones so far in this game. It was something that was mentioned especially by Gravity going into this game. They do like that zone, and they do like just one zone, as they were forceful in reminding us. But I think in handling the zones, LMU have definitely handled it better. They've been utilising the whole pitch, as we see here, slicing through the middle of the zone and taking the continuation options when they appear, and able just to pop this inside shot in.
And it's the classic mistake there from Pichot. She, puts a little bit of a, a big force, trying to be, a target, try and just put herself in the way of Burbage with the disc. But it's you just have to be a bit more smart and think, well, the person with the Frisbee can't score. It's the one player on the pitch who can't score at that point. So it has to be the kind of, drop off, look behind you, play that sort of game as a defender. But it really was just all about that hasty offense. We saw it in the open final even earlier today. A couple of opportunities where there's a defensive play made, but then just too hasty, not centering yourself, not anchoring the offense before you go to work downfield. And at the moment, LMU, when they turn over and have to play defense for their offensive line, they are switched on, they are ready to go, and they are hungry to get the disc back.
I can't agree more, and this game brought to you by ULTI.TV. As you can imagine, on YouTube, free to air. You don't have to pay to watch it, but supporting us will be massively helpful. You can get us on Patreon. All of your money goes to making this magic happen and allowing people to give up their busy time to film some Ultimate for you.
Well, it's about moving it forward and actually saying, rather than relying on voluntary efforts or, just skin and bones type affairs, let's bring it to the next level. It's kind of an old school model, the patron side of things, but we're going to have a little bit of a break up here, rest on our laurels, and we'll bring you the rest of the second half action imminently after this.
We are a group of ultimate players, coaches and video enthusiasts. We've worked with the major federations and the greatest events.
We're on a mission to make Ultimate huge. We want our videos and live streams to be free to watch.
We want to make stories that not only reach you,
but also reach people outside the Ultimate community.
Like and subscribe, ULTI.TV, the best in the world.
Become a member and fund our work
to cover more events in the future and to bring more stories and live coverage to the eyes of the Ultimate world and beyond.
Always on the move? You can keep up to date with ULTI.TV on all of our social media channels. Like, follow, subscribe, share us with a friend or send us a message just to say hey. Thank you for supporting us in our mission to grow Ultimate everywhere.
So the second half underway as we fade out from the dulcet tones of Dominic Collins, one of our remote crew, always supporting us. And you can too by becoming a patron. But at the moment, the ones in need of a little bit of support perhaps are Gravity, who are still just going a little bit unstuck. We saw them get one break after they started so well by taking first blood from LMU, but at the moment it's theirs to throw away, and that was one. Kate Ford not able to connect with Jenna Thompson.
Dublin get another chance to start this half right. I think that turnover could be considered a touch unfortunate in a game where things are going your way. That sticks.
Gilheany throwing out of bounds under the noise of the air ambulance, who must be doing training runs this fine Sunday afternoon, which they have done before at this field site when we've been using it. So you can hear in the field audio. We are acoustically dampened by some trees to the far left side of the field as Thompson's going to shoot towards it for Sharman. Forward back to Sharman indeed for another point to add to her tally for the weekend. Cleena Doyle bailed out of the defensive attempt when she knew she wasn't going to be able to make a play on the disc without clattering Sharman. So well done on the making sure that she's playing within the rules and respecting the space that Sharman had downfield.
Sharman doing a lot of work for LMU this game, taking that disc under a lot of pressure. I always like to note it's really difficult to take a high disc when you have oppositions in your eye line. Takes it without any trouble and then finishes the job as well. And that's not the only time we've seen her score this game.
I think, to be honest, if I had to use one word to describe Claire Sharman's style of play, it would be fearless. She just doesn't care. In the nicest, I'm not in like a disrespectful way of not caring about the other players in the field. She's just, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go execute.
Oh, I think that's a very, very viable way to play. Don't worry about the opposition. You're master of your own destiny. Go get that disc. Don't let anyone stop you.
Absolutely, and she's a very useful point in the zone as well. When we saw LMU earlier on yesterday in this national championship tournament, she had a couple of opportunities. She was playing point in the zone and almost macked the disc along nearly the full block. If only she could close her hand a little bit faster. But dynamic on both sides. So we see the D-line getting a lot of reps here for LMU. They now have re-established their 5-point lead with another break after that channel of unanswered 5 in a row in that first half. So another poachy looking defense from LMU, clustering around the disc and just handing off the players between them upfield. Quam shoots to the far sideline. Merchant, another of the gold medalists from 2019, this Irish women's side. Oh, it's a big one, a big ask of Emma Pichot. She has a good look at it, tries to run it down. I like the intention there, following it, even though it might have been a bit of a spicy biscuit. If she'd have caught that, it would have been added to a much needed injection of enthusiasm to this Gravity side.
I agree, and if she had caught it, it'd be a different game, but maybe being hypercritical, needed an extra person involved in that swing, maybe trying to take off a little bit more, too much, forcing a big swing.
You can see there as Gilhaney walks towards the disc. Claire Gilhaney, of course, one of the two we've got. Delighted to see on this field. A little bit of a low one there. Throws at the feet of Crimsonberry. And an injury you could see as she was going towards the disc initially, a little bit of a hobble. I reckon there's going to be some cramp in those legs. She manages to make her way all over to the sideline, then just crawling around. Yeah, that looks like hopefully just a cramp. Get her some isotonic action on board.
On that point I was making about big swings, the position Gravity are in currently, they're finding themselves under the pump. It's in those situations you need to make sure. You don't need to force it, you need to make sure you're offering an additional swing than you would normally. Get the disc through more hands, smaller shots, make 100% options.
That's a low release from Huang. Oh, and that just bumps out. Jenna Thompson rolling over, just making sure that that one stays secured in the basket. Paulequin to Sharman, to Thompson. Just fast disc movement, constantly changing the angle of attack. Ford now has the target available in the end zone. She takes it. That's a nice disc under a little bit of pressure from the defense, but well held by Ola Kulikowska.
That one did hold up a little bit in the wind, but she had so much deep separation. All that had to do was put the disc out there, and she was always going to reel it in.
Yeah, nice disc from Ford. Again, one of the Iceni alumni currently playing on this LMU side. Previously a GB Juniors coach, so someone who really gives back to developing younger players, including being one of the many mothers on this LMU side. Of course, one of the crucial things that LMU does is creating space for athletes who've chosen to start families to come back to Ultimate. And I think the current tally of LMU babies is now 18, so they can create their entire club. It'll be a mixed team.
Naturally. I did hear you say that earlier. That is quite an impressive tally. And it's a really good thing for the women's game to provide an accepting space for people to take their time out of the game and come back. I heard it spoken about during Worlds, people using COVID as a cheeky opportunity for a little bit of time out of the game for a baby.
Oh, it's all about the tactical COVID baby. One of the other really nice sort of, nods to inclusivity and making actually space for athletes to feel like they can play and they can be included in the division. One of the little nods, you'll notice the rainbow effect on the LMU kit, but also they all have their pronouns on their backs underneath their surnames, so you know what to call them and what pronouns to use as well, which is delightful. Got lots of creds at Masters Worlds.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing to normalise. And Ultimate should really be at the forefront of it.
Well, the more of a non-deal we can make it, the better, I think. So Pugh with the begloved palms to Kwan. Nice movement to Gilhaney. This is definitely a line loaded with handlers right now to try and advance it, just using the small spaces. Gilhaney available for the goal, and that's just taken the disc on a walk in the park for Gravity. Very nice stuff. But is it a little bit too late in the game?
May well be a little too little and a little too late, but Gilhaney marshalling that offense. Slightly different approach from Gravity against that LMU zone. Instead of moving it side to side and relying on those swings that haven't been as successful for them, they decided to go route one, take it straight through the middle and force the disc up the pitch, and it worked perfectly for them.
It's a slim channel, but the connections between the players were really good. You say a little, well, that was a lot of passes.
That was a lot of passes. Another prolonged stop between the points. Previously we were talking about timeouts in the game, on timeouts in between the points. I think the habit we've got into in the UK of long spaces between the points has mean timeouts are less prevalent. You don't need a timeout to make a tactical change, you can do it normally, hence we see more timeouts in the pace of play. I'm a big fan of it though. Sometimes it gets scrappy and you need to stop the game as a team and to recenter yourself, but if we were tighter on the time limits, we'd certainly see more timeouts in between points.
So an out of bounds pool's going to give optimal field position. Nicole signals the brick. And it's nice to see people eventually realising the correct hand signals for a brick rather than a clap over the top, just the single arm raised. Of course, one of the big things about Spirit is making sure that you're communicating your calls effectively, and hand signals are just one of the points of those.
And it certainly helps everyone watching.
Oh yeah, especially when it's an elongated call that goes well beyond the discussion limits, which you don't tend to see so much of in the women's division. So nice small ball for LMU, getting the disc flowing and moving. Oh, big attack in the middle for Kleena Doyle, trying to get the mop out.
Taking that disc under a lot of combined pressure from Gravity there.
High release from Grampy, and unable to find her teammate up the line. Options now. Nice and smooth for Kate Daly. Across Doyle. Stool count starting to rise. Gilhaney grinding up. It's being holstered, pinned to the far side. Barron now, a high one, but the poach was there, so it's okay. Gilhaney tossing through to Doyle. Ooh, hot pressure, but well kept by Barron. A straddle of the end zone lines when we called out. Keeley.
I know we don't have the optimal view of that, but I thought that looked pretty good with the back foot within the end zone. Let's have another look.
It's a difficult one to make, whether she caught and had that front foot up, especially I think we got perhaps caught a little bit up here in the cam boost. But a little chat for us.
Long conversation. You were making a point earlier about the crowd noise and the atmosphere, and you need to get behind your team. It is a little bit of a shame that we don't have as many people watching this game as we did the Open final. People have taken the option to move away or play their own games, and it is a shame with a condensed schedule that we don't have the opportunity for as many people to watch.
Well, with the expectation of the lightning affected activity, we have had the games compressed here. So that's one feature of it. I think there were more teams that weren't playing that hadn't taken the opportunity to go home earlier in the tournament. Of course, a bit unusual to see an open final at 10 AM, but we were fine with it. But this one is what we're going to focus on right now. Sutherland punches through, and at long last, it's another break for Gravity. They're trying to claw back some form in this game. 10-6 now the score.
Yeah, clawing out of a hole of their own making a little bit here, but they are starting it. Toe-in worked that time for them, and they've got the break. Now it's just a case of putting another one in. We were talking to Gravity ahead of this game. They are not going with lines this tournament. Their squad's taking a slightly different setup with handler pods and receiver pods, which means throughout this game all of their players have probably been getting a lot of pitch time, which may help them as the game develops. It is always an issue when you have a cold O-line come on, try and put a point in, and naturally they fluff it. You may be able to tell I'm a D-line player.
Well, I'm also a D-line player, so but it's a good point you make. It so how you rotate your lines through when it's clear that something's not working. It's more often than not you'll see an O-line that's maybe having a bit of a struggle day, and then you bring the D-line on and be like, well, we're not expecting you guys to do that much. You're the D-line, but then they get a break and then a break and then a break, and then suddenly the O-line comes on and it's like, oh, they weren't having a great day before and now they're cold. But I mean, that's just a whole different thing. But you say for this tournament, Gravity are quite familiar with the pod system. It's something they like to use. And it's really just a different dynamic, and it allows you that flexibility a bit more, I suppose, but also it can kind of take away your ability to make your connections when you don't have that firm set that just always play together. So you get sort of different looks here. But as we've said, Gravity do like that little bit of spiciness as they're trying to claw the disc away. Gilhaney, though, with the nice run through. Poliquin, no call whatsoever. Nice and clean, got there first.
Picking up a couple of Ds now, playing out that deep space in the zone.
She does like to be there. Chambers now, centre of the field, no mark, and is going to take advantage. Jenna Thompson on the chase and just about puts the pressure. Deidre Corbett has one attempt at the catch but can't launch herself for a second bid. And look at the body language on Jenna Thompson as she walks away.
It's another person I describe as no fear. Taking the deep option quite consistently for Gravity is a big part of their game, and it's not quite come off for them today.
An overshot from LMU, though, an enviable field position, of course, trotting up to pick up the disc is Anya Gilhaney. Has Pugh completely poached behind. Takes it. Now the three handlers weaving to try and make the most of it. Oh, it's a huge cobra over the top for Pugh. Double hand go up and a little spike underneath. Claire Pugh with the goal, and that's 3 on the trot for Gravity. This could be where the game gets exciting if they can punch in another.
It's certainly exciting. 10-7 is a significantly different scoreline to the 10-3 we almost saw earlier. And a timeout has been taken between these points. It does feel like a pivotal moment in the game. That's a couple of breaks going against LMU. First break run they've really suffered. If you were in the LMU circle now, what would the discussion points you raise be?
I think LMU at the moment aren't playing as clean as they want to and as clean as they can. They're having some, moments where maybe they're allowing Gravity to dictate the pace. They are getting the disc back. We're looking at the shape of this game so far. We've had one clean hold at 10-5 at long last, which was in favour of Gravity, and then a perfect conversion for their D-line. So at the moment, Gravity seem to have cleaned up the mistakes, that polishing things off and maybe trying to gain that momentum, build it up. But if LMU can come out here, just execute a very cold, calm, slick offensive hold, then that is a way to respond to the feisty work that Gravity are putting on. That would be my point. What would you say, Michael?
Very similar thing, and I'm not just copying your answer. Go out here and show them what our offensive line looks like. Don't give them a sniff. Put this game to bed now. We've done the hard work. We've got the gap. Don't let Gravity come back at us.
Well, in terms of perfect conversions for D, we've had 2 perfect conversions for Gravity, but just the one for LMU. So we'll see what happens. Sharman pops to Gainey. Looking around, looking a little bit lost against the zony action from Gravity. Popping off, switching around. Good communication from the Irish side. Women of Dublin, of course, trying to best London. The battle for the ages. This is nice, easy, small ball for LMU. Nice and patient. Nichols, though, looking around, looking a little bit lost. Scarampy with the arm up at the back, but it's Alperin that is jinked to. Gainey. Oh, Sharman right in the back of the end zone, and you can see Gilhaney noticed her far too late there. And there, indeed, the clean hold. No turnovers, lots of passes, though. And 11-7. Lead for London Masters.
LMU got them into a little bit of trouble against that zone there, and it nods to my favourite thing about LMU. I've got to be careful how I phrase this, but I really like the maturity with which they handle. They manage the pace of play incredibly well. They don't force it if it's not on. They trust their handlers to keep the disc alive while their upfield receivers sort themselves out, and then they get ready to go again. It's something every team should learn from. Every team should be able to should try to control the pace of play through their handlers.
So the wind dying back down. Still present, just keeping things that little bit interesting.
Well, it is Nottingham after all.
But we're not at the wind farm. We're very close to wind farm. It's a windy, windy road that would take you directly to it with lots of speed bumps in between these 2 field sites. This, of course, the smaller and slightly lusher of the 2 complexes here in Nottingham that we do so love to play on. And the pull for LMU's D-line we've not seen in a little while, but have Claire Sharman pulling all the duty for this London Masters side. As we see a fire truck in the back of our shot, all the emergency action. And that is going to need no emergency call. That's a beautiful disc into the palms of Alyssa Sutherland. And that is more like it. That's the style of offense Gravity like to play.
No, that was them utilising their deep game very well. Farland spotted that separation developing and got the disc down there. That was a long huck. Found the space for the score. Did manage to get herself into a power position, utilising that handler reset. No force set. That has been a feature of this LMU zone, not really pressuring the force too much, keeping it a little bit loose around the handlers, making them throw lots of passes. It has worked for them so far, but it is allowing Dublin Gravity to attack through that middle space and get free in the middle of the pitch.
Well, up until the late stages of this game, it has been very effective at just confusing the options downfield. You don't always need somebody right up in the face of the mark to cause some issues for an offense. In fact, one of my favourite zones has no mark at all.
Oh, I do like that. I do like that as a rogue look. I do find, though, some teams, you'll find the occasional handler that's more than happy to watch everyone run around and not do anything, and it does tire out the rest of the defence to a certain extent.
Well, hoping to use every joule of energy left in their legs are Gravity. It's very tight lines they are running towards the late stages of this game. Huge effort from Claire Pugh trying to steal the disc away, but not quite able to snag it away from Nichols. Looking around, nearly squeaking it into Alperen, just about on the sideline. Big high fakes to try and move the force of Chambers. Very nice stuff though, and a good find at Anja Vust.
LMU very comfortable just to sit on that sideline, keep working it up the line, not even looked at coming over to this side of the pitch yet at this point.
Well, the huge pressure from Chambers, and eventually it comes good. You see the little celebration as she gets what looks to be a hand block off of Anne Mafty. Gilhaney now, can she be cold and calm and execute? There is space laterally available. Pugh doesn't like the negative pass. Chose up line instead to Chambers. Kwan going into the deep space. Douglas on the attack, but it's going to be a goal, and that is exactly what the doctor ordered for Gravity. They are starting to slowly nibble away at that cushion that London Masters Ultimate put in the first half.
Gravity are definitely developing some inertia now, utilising their deep game much better this second half. Saw the separation early, trusted their receivers, and put the disc up.
So after seeing some slightly risky biscuits in the beginning of this game when Gravity were trying to fight their way back into it on that 5 unanswered channel, it's nice to see them be a bit more calm.
It is, and they've started to, things have started to go their way, and they've started to trust each other a little bit more, and it's definitely working for them.
Well, they've always trusted each other, and that was a bit of a trust ball to Jess Chambers that was, you know, under some tight coverage from the LMU defence. But I think it's more just they look a little bit more relaxed. You know, it's not that flustered kind of like, oh, we must throw it immediately to the end zone, or that kind of, you know, maybe. Do we think the defence is pulling back a little bit and running out of energy, perhaps?
That's a good point, but coming back to the trust element, it's not that they didn't have trust, I guess. It's just not they're showing the trust. They are forcing those options. They're not waiting with the disc and trusting something to come good.
So LMU once more against the Gravity zone. Perhaps we might see them do some person coverage to try and change the rhythm up. Until it doesn't work though. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thompson finds Gainey. 4 black shirts clustered around the Frisbee to try and get around the front set of the zone. Burbage. Everyone hanging out deep. Not much given in the way of space though for the force. This could be the moment though. Alperen with the disc. Gilhaney chilling out There's a soft side available. Gilhaney coming in for the attack, but it's going to be Scarampy with eyes and hands on the disc. Looking around, trying to find Sharman, but it's going to be Jenna Thompson from the back all the way to the end zone, collects the 200 pounds like the Monopoly game, and puts another point on the board.
I think that's what LMU did need. There was gravity was starting to push back. We spoke about it coming out of that last timeout. LMU need to make sure that they stamp their authority when they start with the disc. Make sure they put the disc in cleanly, and really, really good vision, spotting the spaces in this Dublin zone, and having the ability to hit them. Good feet there, keeping the disc inbounds, and then seeing the space and putting it. Sat a little bit of pressure coming from the D, but safe hands all the way.
No, it's a nice execution from Alperin to throw that blade across. Perhaps, yeah, he could have put it a little bit more into the soft side of the field, so Scarampy didn't have to sort of gallop into the centre of the field towards Gilhaney, who had been baiting those deep throws a little bit, but it was the double kind of, which is what you do with a single deep, right? You put two players into that backspace to make them choose, make them not choose, which gives you both options available. But Scarampy, a fantastic target, and I did like the defense and the way it held the disc on the end zone line, but unfortunately none of the players apart from Jenna Thompson deciding to run through and come help out. So our hold for LMU needs to be responded to as Garrity try and close the gap here. Barron. No swing across. There is an inside shot available. Sharman really trying to pressure and force Gravity to take those negative yards, which they're a little bit reluctant to do. Sometimes you have to sacrifice yards to get field position, but throwing behind the back of Michelle Balance.
A little bit different approach from the Gravity offense against the zone that point. Not looking forward, not looking to attack through the middle quite as much, finding themselves in a bit of difficulty.
Daly on the mark, tireless. Sharman throws the goal, but it's going to be brought back for a pick. I think Jen Kwan got picked, which is why Sharman was quite so alone. Oh, it's a foul, sorry. Hand signal there. Perhaps a bit of a push-off.
Is that something you encounter much in the women's game? The push-up from a tight bit of match D?
It's something that happens, obviously, players are very intense. In the UK and European scene at large, there tends to be a lot less physicality than you find in perhaps the North American women's division. It's something that teams are acutely aware of when they go and play in the US. But there's always going to be some incidental touching. It's just whether or not, obviously, if you push somebody's body as you go the opposite direction, you push them and send their momentum one way. It's obviously very much a violation of the rules. And I believe Sharman, if I recall correctly, is actually originally out of the North American scene. Not saying necessarily that's what happened of a push-off foul, but that's possibly what could have happened. But either way, disc staying with Lily Huang, who's going to immediately throw a score cut from the back of the stack from Kate Ford.
Oh, easy as he does it. Long, prolonged break, enough time for LMU to decide exactly what they were going to do. Executed perfectly.
I think that must have been some blown coverage from the back of the stack. Maybe somebody not quite on their toes, allowing Ford to just come out for a very, very easy score indeed. And that is another break for London Masters Ultimate. They are 2 points shy of achieving their goal of peaking here at this UK National Championship, the end of their competitive season. But they'll be back, I'm sure, for many more years to come. Well, hopefully anyway. Be a shame to lose them. And of course, this may well be the last time we see the EUCR-W format be twinned with UK Nationals. Of course, it creates a little bit of interesting dynamics for the schedule writers with these Irish teams coming over. This, of course, being their qualifying event to make it to the European Championships in a couple of weeks in Caorle, Venice. We're back at Italian Butlins.
No, I am looking forward to that change. It does condense the end of the season, and especially teams who aren't absolutely convinced they're going to make Euros, when they need to qualify, it gives them almost no time to get themselves ready, get a squad together and get out there.
Well, a team that is definitely running out of time is Dublin Gravity. Gil Heaney faking the scuba to Pugh. I'm pointing at Jess Chambers. But again, just happy to play the small ball on the far sideline. Sharman's trying to sneak through like a thief. But just closes the hand around Air. Fleming now to Chambers. Popping up and through. It's a nice release, and it's going to be good as gold for Claire Pugh. But is it going to be a gold in the palms of Gravity at the end of this match?
At this stage of the game, at this late hour, it's difficult to see anyone apart from LMU winning this game. I would like to point out they've slightly changed how they're approaching this defense. They're overloading that middle area of the pitch, really trying to stop that flowing play through, but it is opening up some more options deep, and we can see that exploited here.
Well, it's an interesting one in terms of the stats of this game. We've said that, you know, it may be it's certainly looking in the favour of LMU, which is very easy because they're 3 points clear of Gravity currently. But actually, in terms of the game shape, it's just been all about the breaks. There's 8 for LMU, but also 5 for Gravity. It seems like the defensive lines have been more efficient at scoring almost than the O-lines here. But it is within grasp still for Gravity. If they can play their best ultimate out here in the last couple of points, we'll only be blessed to a maximum of 7 of them as the time ticks by. 6 minutes of regulation time remaining. But I don't know, I wouldn't say it's over quite yet.
It is the old adage, you don't want to be flying home with anything left in your legs. Now's the time to put everything down.
Indeed, you want nothing left in your legs and a gold medal around your neck, if you can. But whether it will be by air or just by, well, to be fair, some cycled out of their London Masters team to get to this tournament just shows how fantastically athletic they are. Numbers on their passports of their birth years be damned. Nafty centre of the field off Alperin. Nice inside shot, far side. Dinsdale Young now. Looking around for options. Alperin. Oh, Chambers with the arm trying to swipe the disc down, but now they're behind the front set, who do run through to apply the pressure once more.
Gravity working incredibly hard to try and shut down LMU's resets, but it's not quite coming off for them just yet.
Oh, that's a high stall release though, just tossing it into the chest of Alperin, and Chambers with the layout block. Eventually the defensive option pays off. Now can they use it?
That was a huge bid. That's exactly what any team needs when they need to get back into a final like this.
Daily low, but it's going to be scooped up by Chambers. Lady Luck finally smiling on Gravity. Everyone racing down line, though it looked to be possibly a point block off of Mara Alperin. Dialed in as Claire Pugh tried to race up the far section of the field.
Gravity not quite able to take advantage of the momentum they'd started to build there. Everything slowed down and a turn came from it.
Well, perhaps getting a bit impatient, trying to jam it down that far sideline still. But LMU aren't an easy unit to try and get away from. They know exactly where the pressure points are and how to use them. At the moment, though, it's all about, can Gravity put themselves between the palms of everyone trying to reach and get that block. Gainey looking around, finds Nichols nice and easy. Can they keep the disc moving? No. The zone applying pressure. Big mark though. Alperin racing through. Good body positioning to just keep the disc in. Gainey.
Gravity actively trying to match mark those resets and still not able to stifle LMU's possession.
Well, it just shows the variety of release points, though. That might be a bit too much. No, it's not. It's perfect to Vist. Oh, that's a lovely shot. Well recovered by Garnier. I think that was supposed to be a lead pass for Nichols. But what defense this is for LMU. Easy to let that one go to Dinsdale-Young. She does have to go very high for it. Nice snag.
Oh, there is an option in the far side of the end zone. Is she going to take the overhead?
Well, a high release into the deep space, but no, it's not going to be. Easily smacked down by Deirdre Corbett. And who else but Anya Gilheeney getting us back off the dead disc for Gravity. She's working so hard. Nobody really making a cut into the deep space for the big bomb. Pugh now. Gilheeney sneaking around the back. Chambers available, dishing back. You can see at this moment so many of Gravity's players just sort of jogging, trotting around the field. Chambers available for an easy reset though. LMU just happy to let them play their patient stuff, and coming in from the block, Mara Alperin. Sophie Farnan tries to lay out, Daly, tries to lay out to keep it alive. And that's going to be an easy one for LMU. Perhaps Gravity just running out of gas there a little bit.
I think Gravity definitely had hit the floor there. Lots and lots of work trying to stifle LMU, but unable to, when they got the turn, capitalise. Sitting against that zone, they weren't very mobile, they weren't able to get anything moving, and a good bit of defence generated the turn.
Well, it's just a hold for LMU. Opportunities were made from Gravity's tight defence, but they just didn't quite have it in them to convert. Now, this is where you really have to. We know that they're able to fire themselves up on defense, but just ran out of legs to try and cut and get away from LMU's O-line, who've been pretty well rested, to be fair, after that unanswered 5-point run in the first half.
Just a few seconds left now in this game.
Indeed, we see Dave Halls, one of our tireless volunteers, readying himself for the hooter. So it will be a game to 15 regardless.
So, but despite some of those longer gaps between points, we have been able to get... Not saying I told you so, but we may see a game to 15. We are going to see a game to 15.
Well, it certainly hasn't been off the back of absolute flawless offensive conversions, all for the D-lines when they get the breaks back. But we did see things clean up a little bit in the sort of later stages of this game. Lots of good, clean holds in the second half and clean breaks.
And it has been really good to see Dublin get back into this game. It was starting to look a little one-sided, but they have made a really good challenge in the second half.
Yeah, talking about the momentum, if they'd have managed to punch that last one in, it would be a very different feeling right now. But one point at a time. It's all about playing it 0-0, game to 1.
They're definitely on the march here.
Absolutely. Fleming with a pass. Nearly overshoots Helen Barron. Like the way she's moving the mark around. It's a high release of the pressure valve, but a great reception. A nice one for Michelle Balance to rip out the sky. The stall out is going to be called. It definitely was a just put it out, just get something out of the hand.
It did ring a bailout, did it not? Really good work on the force, trying to shut down every option. Reset's not coming. Takes the option. Feels like either way this may be a turn or a disputed stall.
Oh, it's possible it could be retracted. No, retracted stall out.
Retracted stall out. I think I've spent too much time playing open.
Well, we'll say no more about that comment, Michael, but an excellent discussion, fantastic spirit. I think that was Chaska Weddell on the mark, having that little chat and engaging the players around the field, saying what did we all as a collective think about that, and actually giving the the respect, I suppose, to Helen Barron. Say, you know what, I trust you. If you feel like you got it away before I said the tut of 10, then fair enough. And fair enough as the high release, sort of, you know, high stall backhand that came out. That was a picture.
I only have admiration for that attitude. Being the willingness to accept that you're wrong is something that other divisions might benefit a little bit more from.
But it's something that LMU have done very well in this game, I'd say, is actually applying the consistent pressure to Gravity to make them really uncomfortable around the disc. They've really made it hard for them to reset in the spaces that they want to, and that was a really good example of, you know, realistically, as much as we like big plays, big Ds, the best defense in the whole wide world and the most satisfying is when you get a proper stall out, because it means everyone's done their job.
Yeah, team defense is the ideal. Those big fly-through layout Ds, they look fantastic in the highlight reel, but they do hide the secret that you're probably a little out of position and you're not really doing your team's job.
Or you're intentionally baiting it. That happens too.
That does happen too, and it is a good way, if you have the matchup in your pocket, of generating a turn in tight situations.
But to mentally close down handlers so they don't even see anything. They don't even feel like a throw to just yards on stall 9. That's always a fun place to be as a defender. But LMU with their first opportunity to close this one out, starting on offense. Emma Burbage looking around, a little bit of a delayed start on the stall there. And again, it's the Gravity zone. It has generated turns thus far in this game. Garnier coming right into the pocket. Burbage now. Not much opportunity being given to the swing, mostly because LMU are clustering around the disc. Happy to play in those uncomfortable small spaces. Burbage now, up line to Sharman. Weddle going into the deep space. Sharman doesn't like it. Chooses the conservative way of being, and I don't blame her. They'll get 4 chances, will the O-line of LMU. Alperin. To Burbage, it's a high one, she's going to run it down. Discussion whether she's inbounds. Oh, upfield Chambers immediately saying, yep, that was good. Treated to a little bit of a fun, dynamic, explosive plays, even with the conservative way that LMU are currently trying to go against this Gravity zone. Seeing if they can bring their opponents down to earth with a bump. Burbage now up line with momentum. Could hit Sharman on the far side, who's just in, you know, plenty of space. A nice bladey one would do, or a hammer over the top.
This has been a long point already. I think LMU would want to get themselves into a position where they could strike towards the end zone with their strong throwers and finish this game now. You don't want to spend forever in this position. You don't want to run out of legs at this late stage of the game.
Nice crashing in and a find for Skarampi. She's going to open up the arm. Gilhaney on the chase, but that's Sharman for days, and it's gold for LMU. London Masters Ultimate Women take down the title that they were aiming for all season long, and what a dominant way to do it.
What dominant, what a fantastic performance across their entire roster. One key point I want to draw out is the difference between the handlers in these two teams. LMU were put into some really, really tricky positions, often coming up against match defense in the handler reset space, and they were more than happy to work it around, trust each other, get free. On the other hand, Gravity have some very, very strong handlers, but when the pressure was applied to them, we did see turnovers, and I think that's where the game might have been.
And I love to see that shot to finish. Not really seen much in terms of big throws from Skarampi, but just showing that, you know, the upfield players for LMU can do it just as effectively, and perfect waiting just to put it a scoop out to in and just in the pocket where nobody could get it but Claire Sharman. And of course, one more to her tally. She's been dominating the sky for LMU all tournament and all season long, but you can see the delight there, the hugging. What a way to finish off the season for London Masters Ultimate.
Yes, going winless at Nationals. It's a fantastic way to finish it. You can't really improve on that much. A winless performance.
A winless performance? You
Sorry,
mean a lossless performance?
A lossless performance, my apologies.
All they do is win, 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 no matter what this season at Nationals. They came pretty close. I think they came third back at 2021. Fell one game shy of reaching the final. But lovely to see, and also so many of their opponents here in this women's division that was wide open, anyone's for the taking. The number of teams that have credited LMU is saying it's playing against your heroes, playing against those individuals who, you know, you saw on the fields dominating when you were but a wee fresher and beginners to the sport, and to see them now come together, form this unit, not just one pure club, a collection of individuals, some sick Iceni, Brighton, Kent representation. I'm sure there's probably teams I'm missing out of, international representation as well. It's just fantastic to see them coming together and actually saying that age is just a number.
Age is just a number, and they have demonstrated it well here. I think you're right, it is a collection of heroes, names that have been in the ultimate scene for a very, very long time. Age is just a number, and experience counts for a lot.
But this will be a great experience for Gravity. Obviously, we talked at the beginning of the game about them being a club side, trying to develop, bring younger players through. They have some European gold medalists on their roster, but some new names, some stars for the future. And of course, hopefully, you know, fingers crossed, Emily O'Brien taking that shoulder dislocation in their semi-final against Bristol. Hope she'll be able to recover and come back. She'll be watching this one, I'm sure, later on a bit of a tape delay. Well, she might not want to watch it back, she might, but if you are listening, Emily, we're sad not to have seen you on the field, and we hope you recover very soon.
I can't echo that enough. One final point I would like to make about LMU, you alluded to it earlier, but it's fantastic, the culture they have created down there in London. Very welcoming. It's exactly what we want to see from clubs. That's why we play sport. Most of us, especially team sport players, it's for the group that you're surrounded by, and they look like they're thoroughly enjoying themselves.
And we will get some sideline interview action from one of the LMU players when they're finished with their Spirit Circle Spirit Lines post-COVID with Gravity. But we were chatting to them ahead of the game, and they had a very simple and a very good message for those who have maybe been inspired by their club and their team in general, which was just to play more Ultimate, play more games.
Exactly, play more games, play every game you can, get down to pick up. Even if you're not like traditionally involved with the club and you happen to be there for a weekend, go out, get some Frisbee. And one other point they made that rings really true for me, I've managed to coach sessions for a long time, tried to get people down for pickup, is no matter how many people you have turn up, always do something. Never cancel training, never cancel pickup if you're only 4, 5 or 6 of you. That's where the hard yards are gained, especially if you're trying to push yourself on. Always getting discs through your hands is exactly how you need to get better.
Indeed, there are certain skills you can work on your own. You can be Millhouse, throw into yourself, work on your hooks, get yourself a net to do some accuracy practice. But even in a small unit, there's so much to be gained from those small formats, especially because when you play mini, there's just nowhere to hide. There's no stack for you to go take a break in. It's just, what can you make of it? Can you read the defense? Can you have a look at where your fellow players are? And actually playing those small formats, those lower numbers, it's tiring. You have to be in decent condition to do it, but actually what you'll do is allow your brain to work on those field and field awareness skills of where is the disc, where are my other players, where's the defense, where's the opportunity for me to make a play.
Yeah, building that additional Frisbee sense is a really important thing, and something that can be seen in every single top flight player. They know where the players are, they instinctively know where the space is going to appear, and that comes from the hard yards, in the cold, the wet, the mud, playing a bit of mini.
Well, it's going to be interesting actually to also talk about Gravity for a second, because obviously they've come and shown up here at UK Nationals, but fun fact, Irish Nationals for the women's division is next week. So they will still have another opportunity to sign off their season. I don't know, actually, I should know this. It's very bad form of me, Michael. I don't know if Gravity are going to Euros. I believe they are, but either way, they'll have a chance to play out at their own home nationals next week, where it's probably going to be the game to watch will be Gravity versus Flame. Now, Flame we haven't had on the scene here, but they've been making some waves here at UKU Nationals, and it's maybe we didn't get the best out of Gravity in this women's final. Maybe they were a little bit tired, perhaps. Both these teams, though, we have to credit them. They round out with quite small rosters to put together some pretty high-level ultimate here at the Highfield Sports Complex.
Exactly right, yeah. Flame have been doing really well in this women's division. Some teams, may I say, have got a little bit close to the fire, scorched a little bit in their encounters. I think Flame may be sitting a little bit lower than they wanted, but it's a very competitive women's division in the UK at the moment. We've briefly been talking around this topic. I'm a massive fan of having the talent spread out across the clubs in the UK women's scene. I think while we don't compete as well in Europe, and we don't compete again as well on the world stage, it's allowing so many more women to have the opportunities to play with their heroes, see the superstars in action, learn from them, and play against them as well. That's how we're going to increase the scene in the UK. My humble opinion.
Well, we may diverge slightly on that one. It's an interesting kind of experience. We did see, obviously, all the UK women's teams finish very, very close to each other, and not far away as well from the Irish women's teams at World Clubs in but a few weeks ago in Cincinnati. And it can be quite demoralising in some respects to see, teams not able to put together a unit that can really go challenge the best of them at that top level. And part of that is obviously how your domestic scene works, what clubs you have together. It would be nicer, I think, to see maybe some more camaraderie between some of the teams in the women's division. One woman's opinion. But one thing I'm massively excited for, though, which I'd completely forgotten about until just now, one of the bonuses of LMU winning nationals is that a certain hot pink slip dress is going to be appearing. Now, a little bit of complete pure colour for you. Jenna Thompson, the number 11 for London Masters Ultimate, famed for playing for Leeds, then establishing one of the founding members of that London club, eventually coming across to Iceni, and now, of course, playing for London Masters Ultimate. Not a big fan of pink. It's not her colour. And not a big fan of dresses in general, but the promise was made to her teammates that should they win their first UK Nationals title, that they were looking to peak for this season, she would don the hot pink slip dress, and I believe it is indeed just in the right-hand side of your camera shot. You can see our wonderful colleague Benji Reeves with a fetching light dusty pink, and there you see the slip dress tossed over the shoulder, so we might get some pink slip dress action. But I love that kind of, just chill, fun vibes coming out of a national championship side. And that's one of the things I think is really common about Ultimate, is that community vibe. And sort of, we take the game very seriously when we're on the field, but it's always nice. Did she just throw her cleats away? Yeah, they're done for the season. They've clearly given up the ghost. I don't know about you, but mine were definitely crocodiling by the end. Well, that's it. Job done. A little 6 sticker on the water bottle in the background as well there. As we say, big names from big clubs coming together in the Masters division and hanging tough with the wee rapidy young. And so we have indeed a sideline interview just to give us the flavour from Cheska Tyler Weddle. Down to you, Benji.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How are you feeling?
Pretty amazing. Pretty good, yeah.
Was coming into the weekend, did you have a title maybe in mind as a goal, or is this kind of above what you were expecting coming in?
We came in believing we could win, but we also came in knowing that the field is really even and really spread, and it kind of could be anyone's game. But we 100% had the belief that we could take it if it went right for us and we did the right things.
What do you think the keys I'll put my teeth back in, the keys were to your success this weekend?
We we had a lot of adaptable defences, so we shifted up and changed for the different teams and what they were doing. We very very early on in our first few games we play a lot of small-sided games in our training, so we had to adapt back to sevens. But I think once we'd done that, it was about playing together and working out like the spaces and it's all about the team. It's about what we do together as a team. It's not about any one superstar or anything like that. So it was working together.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that team spirit was very much in abundance this weekend. It's been a long season for you guys because you had Masters back in Limerick early in July. The whole calendar blended into one. Looking at the future, are we going to see you guys back again in future nationals and maybe internationally again?
100% future nationals. Kind of, we're a very new club, so this is our second season. We're still. That looks lovely. You have to put your on. I'm talking on this mic. Okay. We'll join you. We're here to stay in the UK. Nationals is going to be our tournament, but there are some other European events we want to attend. Tom's is a massive favourite of ours, so we want to go there. We couldn't make EUCF this year because the 4 days just made it quite difficult for us to get enough numbers. And yeah, we're here to compete. We're here for a little while longer.
As long as we can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been great fun watching it all this weekend, and congratulations. Go off and enjoy it.
Thank you.
Back to you guys upstairs.
Well, there we go. Not one, but two feisty looking slip dresses, and indeed Cheska Weddle will be donning her own. It's a very fetching look, and we are very, very here for it. But that wraps us up. The women's title decided alongside the mixed and open. We won't ruin the scores in case you're watching these in reverse order, but it's been an absolute delight to bring you all the action from the Nottingham Highfield Sport Campus. Michael, finish us off with that game. What 3 words would you use to describe the play we've just seen?
Use the reset space. Keep the disc alive. That's how we saw LMU play. That's how we saw them keep the game going. Exactly how you should try and play.
Well, we'll just say the word "the" isn't a word. It's fine. It's just a connector. It's a connector. But no, that was a fantastic performance. Congratulations to London Masters Ultimate. And that's a wrap for our coverage. It's been an absolute delight, a pleasure and an honour to bring you this free stream. If you want to keep Ultimate coverage free, please do consider becoming a patron of ULTI.TV. We have many different levels to suit all of your budgets. If you want to become a team patron, also that's an opportunity you can do. Club together as a club and help support Ultimate coverage in Europe and beyond. For myself, Hannah Pendlebury, Michael Paul, the ULTI.TV crew, the UKU staff and all of the players, it's been a delight and we will see you next season.
ULTI.TV.
And also our medical team and the ground staff here who are absolutely brilliant. Okay, Spirit of the Game, this year we're doing a bit different, and so watch out for news. We'll be awarding a Spirit of the Game trophy to a team, a club for the whole